Latinx excellence. Mujeres, keepers of cultura.
I'm AJ Noriega, and my club is Chicana Dreams. When I was in high school, I was talking to my friend, and I was like, you know, one day I'm gonna buy a lowrider. I'm gonna start my own club. It's gonna be all females. My cousins, they have a club. I would see like my tias rolling with my tios in the back. So starting the club, it was like different, you know, like I was going against the grain. I will not be just someone that you can sit down and shut up. I'm here to say something, I'm here to lead something, because I got the bravery in my heart to do it. Having your car and then like deciding how you want it to sit, how you want it to ride. Adding like little touches here and there that represent you, right? Like your plaque. When you put your placazo on, that's the heart. It's with a lot of love and respect to be able to give this to you, my prima.
Oh, thank you.
I love you so much.
Love you too.
Chicana Dreams to me is a sisterhood. It's everything I represent. This is just something that brings the community together, gives us the opportunity to better our people.
This makes me happy, you know, seeing my family get together and be surrounded by all the cars and the good times, laughter. I get to bond with my sisters. The cars, that's just extra. What it's really about is like the bond that we have with one another.
This is a testament to the strength and resilience of the Latinx community. Latinx excellence. Mujeres, keepers of cultura.
Bienvenido, mi gente. ¿Cómo están? Welcome to Sod Mesa. I'm Chef Nelson Germán, dueño and chef of this beautiful place. So I'm born and raised in New York City, Washington Heights. There's a lot of Dominicanos there. It's like little DR. It's a really fun place. New York City, it's deep in my heart. It's my hometown. But Oakland, the Bay Area, it's even more special to me. It's made me who I am now. In la cultura de nosotros, it's all about family, it's all about culture, it's all about community. Oakland has that. Sod Mesa for us in our culture, it means over the table. And what that means also is basically what we do after the meal. After the meals is the special time where you already had great food, you had amazing drinks, you still listen to music, and the drinking still keeps on going. There's still a kind of the party atmosphere, but it's the best time to connect as people because we're so happy, we're in a happy place after everything you just went, just experience, but the party doesn't end. This is really special. I'm gonna start with limon verde. Then I'm gonna do a little spiced honey syrup, miel. Then the special liqueur, Caribbean lime or Caribbean pineapple liqueur. That's super bright and delicious. A little bit of mezcal. Want a little smoky aspect to it. And then our special Sod Mesa Day Rum, which we collaborate with Mosswood out of Berkeley. Now we get our ice. Again, this drink is inspired by the cancancha and everything, so I want to do something that reflects the flavors of the oyster. So it has the mint, you'll see in a garnish. We have the pineapple, a lot of lime juice. So shook that up, pour right in the glass. I wanted a place to represent my culture, for one. Being Dominicano, being Afro-Latino, wanted to show a place that represents, kind of showcase the whole diaspora, not just the Dominican side, the West African side, the Latino side, like just the whole thing. It's from the music, from the colors, the ingredients that we use here, everything tells a story. You know, it tells a story of my childhood, my people, and then even our ancestors. You know, it's a fun place to be, but it's really deeper than that.
Hola, soy Danista Rivera.
Hola, mi nombre es Luis Flores. Somos Om Sabor.
Tenemos la comida que es vegana, con raíces latinoamericanos.
Es una conexión entre música, sabores, experiencia.
People sometimes think that plant-based can be boring, and I can attest to that because I've been vegetarian my whole life.
Don't hate just seeing the word plant-based or vegan.
We want to teach people that you can have all these amazing flavors with all these textures and to taste the love in our food.
I always pictured to have a business that I could connect both music and food in the same place. And this miraculously, magically brings us here.
Es como un rompecabezas, como que son little pedacitos en la vida y de repente cuando tienes como esa meta de que quieres compartir tus pasiones, ¿no? Para mí la cocina, para él también es la cocina, pero la música y todas las rompecabezas se conectaron y así es como que hemos llegado por este camino a este lugar.
Well, my name is Lourdes and my restaurant is called Casa Borinqueña. It's like bringing the ambiance from Puerto Rico here. Just keeping it as traditional as possible, my dishes as traditional as possible. I've always had some guilt, you know, when it comes associated with meat. During the pandemic, it just got me thinking, like, what can I do for my body and still do good for the world? And I decided to just stop eating meat. My business was meat-based. That's a big thing in Puerto Rican culture. Meat doesn't have a flavor. It doesn't. You introduce the flavors to it. So I said, I can do the same thing that I do with meat, that I can do it to vegan meat. No Puerto Rican food is nothing without sofrito. Makes the food taste like heaven. As long as you're using the sazon, the adobos, you're marinating, you're using the marinades, it's just the same. And when people try my food, it makes them curious to know where the food is coming from, what's the story behind it. So they'll look into it more, into educating themselves and knowing more about our culture and our history.
Hey, this is Chef Raul Medina, and you're at Taqueria La Venganza inside of Emporium in downtown Oakland. La Venganza is a modern take on the traditional. That's gonna remind you of your childhood, remind you of what your mother used to cook, but be healthier, be plant-based, cruelty-free. I would probably say my father really was the influence. My father passed away, sadly. He had diabetes since the age of 30. For factory farming here, you don't get the quality of food that you would have had in Mexico, which is farm to table. As a Californian kid, when you go to Mexico, your grandma immediately makes you like cut chickens' heads off. After that, you really don't want to eat chicken. So when I told my grandma, she was basically like, you're gonna starve. So she immediately started showing me basically the rundown of everything so I could make myself plant-based food, but in the same style that my grandma made. You can eat the way you used to. You can eat traditionally. You can eat your tacos, burritos, nachos, whatever you want. And it's just as greasy, just as tasty, just as salty. But you don't have to add that cruelty. If you're doing different things from your culture, make a vegan version because you have that sazon, you have that flavor. And that's what we're lacking in the community.
Support for KQED Live comes from Berkeley Rep, the San Francisco Symphony, and SF MoMA.
The disproportionate impact of
more than half of Black business owners
and disproportionate.
Somehow we always find a way to rise.
To the blueprint builders, to the backbones of every block, for the curators of the culture, and for generations to follow. You might fall, but never fail. Keep rising, keep rising, keep rising. Apply for business, marketing, and tech makeovers on us.
Buenas tardes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Esperanza Vaquiz, and I am the Live Events intern. I want to begin by acknowledging that KQED headquarters are located on Ramaytush Ohlone land. We recognize that we benefit from living and working on this occupied land and that we owe a collective debt to its original stewards. For those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. KQED's Northern California's PBS NPR member station. KQED Live is our new multi-platform events program that produces screenings, talks, performances, and food tastings based on KQED's mission to inform, inspire, and involve. You can learn more at kqed.org/live. If we bring value to your everyday life, I encourage you to consider becoming a KQED member. You can find out about how at kqed.org/live/donate. We want to thank the season sponsors that make KQED Live possible. SF MoMA, Berkeley Rep, Comcast Business, and San Francisco Symphony. A big shout out to the Scarlet Sage Herbal Apothecary, Temple of Earth Apothecary, Curanderismo Sin Fronteras, Ancestral Apothecary, and Divine Unity Collective for helping us promote this community event. Also, if you're on Instagram, and I know you all are, be sure to follow us at KQED in Espanol and at KQED. Before we get to tonight's event, I wanted to let you all know that we have 3 pairs of tickets to give away. SF MoMA invites you to experience Sitting on Chrome, on view now. In this exciting collaborative exhibition, artists Mario Ayala, Rafa Esparza, and Guadalupe Rosales engage the visual language of lowriders and explore cruising as a practice of resistance and community visibility. Learn more at sfmoma.org. And the winner of the tickets are, if you guys want to do a little drum roll maybe, Marico Garcia. Mauricio Garcia, if you're here, raise your hand and we'll have someone give you a ticket. Awesome. Congratulations. Woohoo! And the second winner, actually, there is no other winners. Just go to MoMA. You guys are all winners. Congratulations to the winner. And now, your hosts this evening are Paloma Abarca Cortez, KQED Latinx engagement producer, and Carlos Cabrera Lomeli, KQED News and Espanol reporter, who help shine light on and amplify the Bay Area Latinx community. Please welcome Carlos and Paloma to the stage.
Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good?
So good to see everybody here. You feel this good energy, Paloma?
I do. And look at all the people that showed up.
Exactly. And we also count with a lot of people watching from home through the live stream. So we also say welcome. If you're watching from home, I believe that's over 800 people that signed up. So also, te mandamos un gran abrazo si estás viéndonos desde casa.
Yes, sí. Antes de pensar, my name is Paloma Yaritza Barca Cortez, and I am the Latinx engagement producer here at KQED.
And I'm Carlos Cabrera Lomelí, reporter with KQED News and KQED en Español.
And before we begin tonight's event, Reclaiming Curanderismo, with our beloved 3 featured guests, we have Raeni Gonzalez, who is one of our special featured guests, that's going to do a guided meditation for us to set the energy, set the mood, and make sure that we go into this conversation in good spirit. So please welcome Raeni Gonzalez to the stage.
Yes. And we will step off the stage for a bit, give Raeni all of the space. And then we'll be back in a moment.
Miari, hello, relatives, welcome. So first, I just want to acknowledge the indigenous peoples of this land that we're on today, San Francisco, the Ohlone and the Coast Miwok. And also, for those that are watching on live stream, for wherever you are, if you don't know who the ancestors are of the land that you're on, please find out and acknowledge them, offer them respect. And also want to call in those ancestors of all of us here, from all of our lineages, that they're here with us. We're going to be talking about medicine, and this is ancestral. So take a deep breath now with me, all the way down into your belly, all the way down to your feet, and then all the way out. Right, and so I saw some of you adjust in your seat. So doing exactly that, making sure your spine is erect, right? So that this life force, this breath can really move through. Again, taking a deep breath all the way down into the belly, down to the toes, and then up and out. And then as you breathe, just notice how your body rises and falls. Breathing in, the body rises. Breathing out, the body falls, right? Just like the current of water. And we are made up of so much water. Breathing in and breathing out and connecting with that element, right? Of the water, of the air, and also of the earth, your body, and also of the fire within you, that creative force. As you breathe in and out, just connecting with all of the elements that are within you. Breathing in life force, breathing out life force. Breathing in life force, breathing out life force. Life force is permeating you, permeating this room, bringing in that higher frequency here tonight. And a few more breaths. Breathing in life force, breathing out life force. And one last breath. And then very slowly opening your eyes and allowing the light in the room to enter you, to fill you up. Okay. I think we're pretty grounded now, huh? Yeah. And just feeling that groundedness, that centeredness, and letting that linger for a little bit here. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Ra. And as we all return, I'd also ask to give a round of applause to Ra and to our guests who are now joining us. And I mean, I really just want to express my gratitude, Ra, because the knowledge that will be shared here today, toda esta sabiduría que vamos a compartir hoy, it's sacred, it's infinite, es algo sagrado, es algo infinito. And therefore, it's really important that we clear our minds and we ground our intentions before we begin this conversation, right? And I also first want to share a little bit with folks here about you, Ra. So, Ra is originally from New York, a two-spirit Afro-Boricua ceremonialist, and is now based here in the Bay Area, in Oakland. And they protect and provide wisdom on many types of ceremony and are part of the Healing Clinic Collective, which offers free healing services throughout the East Bay. We are also joined by Napa Quetzali Martinez from Southern California, a clinical herbalist, a healer, and a teacher. She also was recently the writer behind the Ask a Witch column for Nylon Magazine. So thank you for being here. Muchas gracias. And we are also accompanied by Ingrid Rojas Contreras, an author and a writer originally from Bogota, Colombia, who now lives here in San Francisco. Many of you may know Ingrid by her book, Fruit of a Drunken Tree, and her memoir, The Man Who Could Move Clouds, which shares the stories of her mother and her grandfather, both curanderos, and that was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize of Literature. So please join me in welcoming una gran bienvenida to our three guests. And now over to you, Paloma.
Yes, y'all. So I'm out here in the audience now. Hi. And before we begin tonight's panel discussion, I did want to tap in with y'all and see how you began this journey to curanderismo or to this practice. You know, was it to your tias, or your tios, mom, dad? How did you get to this path, if you don't mind sharing? Lovely.
Thank you. I got into curanderismo from my grandmother, my great-grandmother as well. And they are based out of San Miguel de Allende in Guanajuato. And also, I had a spiritual father in Austin where I was a mentor for about 10 or so years before he passed.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Yes, lovely.
Hi, my name is Vanessa. My journey started, honestly, when I had an illness and was paralyzed for 6 months and wasn't able to walk. And so just rediscovering my roots. I wasn't connected with the Western medicine to have spine surgery. And yeah, that started my journey in relearning and learning more about my ancestors. That was something that just was not brought over with my parents and my education. And so that and doing my own research and linking with my sisters, my maestras, and so here I am.
Thank you for sharing.
I think for me, it also started with the disconnect, living life as a checklist, but not feeling happy. And then that's when the plant medicines called me, and I went to Ecuador and worked with that. And all this remembering that I love colors, that I love flowers, that I love nature, that I love my family. So yeah, it was more of a remembrance, and then bringing that home, and then having my family remember and also accompany me on this journey, and just wanting to learn more and being happy and just a rediscovery.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Angel, hi.
Hello, my name is Tlawis Papalot, or Angel. And my journey comes from a matrilineal line. My mother was an herbalist. She was a curandera, but she would not label herself as that. And my great-great-grandmother in Oaxaca was pretty well-known wellness keeper, for a lack of other words. And my maestra, Elena Avila, through my journey in sobriety, actually connected with her and has guided a lot of my sober journey.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you all for, being open to sharing and being vulnerable with us and letting us know how you got to this path. It just comes to show that we all got here differently, right, in different ways. And I personally got to this path myself through my mother as well, and my grandmother. I saw altars at home, or grew up with, red ribbons on the wrist, or like seeing my mom put red ribbons on her pregnant belly during certain seasons as well. So I grew up with that in the home, and it's a great segue to, tap into our guest today, and with you, Carlos. How did y'all get into Curanderismo?
Right. And then we can hear from each guest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Ingrid,
We'll begin with.
Sure. I grew up with, my mother had a curandera business in the attic of our house. And, one of the things that I really loved about growing up with that is that she grew up with her father having a curandero business in their house. So I really grew up in a family of stories. Like, my mother would share stories about my grandfather and people that would come to see him, and what that was like as she was a little girl. And then I was sort of living that out myself in the present. And I always admired and looked up to my mother, and that ability that she had to hold space for people in different ways, and use plant medicine, and just really help with healing. Like, I could see the difference with people that returned.
How about you, Napa?
I feel like this is just a path that I was really born into and have just kind of continued, probably from previous lifetimes even. But in this lifetime, I was really grateful that my abuelo was a plant person also, and a healer in his own ways. He was one of those people that would sell his plantas and with the seeds that he had brought from Mexico and at the swap meet. But he was selling fruit trees and medicinal plants and flowers. And what I learned from him is that he just saw the beauty in every plant, whether it was a fruit or a vegetable or just a flower. All these plants have something to share with us, some very, very important medicine for us. And then I was also grateful that my parents had already started that process of decolonizing themselves and re-indigenizing themselves. So they're both, amazing wisdom keepers and artists. And I just kind of grew up in that ceremonial way of life of every weekend being at some, ceremony, ritual, powwow, wherever it was. But I was always in very sacred spaces and ceremonial spaces. And, sometimes the kids are just kind of like running around the ceremony and like not paying attention, but I was always sitting with the adults and paying attention and just as involved as everyone else. So I think from a young age, I just knew that I was the one that was going to be carrying this medicine for my family.
Thank you. Yeah, I relate to this about the past lives as well, because I was deeply, deeply spiritual as a child. And what was originally introduced to me to pray to was, Jesus. And I took that really to heart very deeply. And, my abuela who raised me also was very spiritual. And I had night terrors. I was a very sensitive, empathic child, and there was a lot going on around me, and I had night terrors. And pretty regularly, my abuela, instead of coddling me, like most abuelas often would, she would take me straight to the statue of the Sacred Heart of Jesus and tell me to pray. And she would douse me with alcoholado, right, which is sort of Boricua's version of agua florida. And I would feel at peace. I would feel completely at peace and go to bed. And that really instilled in me the beginning. I feel like that was the beginning. That was the introduction, right? And she kind of, this is what we do a lot, right? Our peoples, we mix things, right? So it was the Sacred Heart of Jesus, right? But then there was that medicine, that limpia, with the plants, and that it was the malagueta. And so that was the beginning of it for me, and I held on to that until eventually, being Two-Spirit, being queer, the church was not some place that I felt welcomed once I actually, came into that for myself. So I went on a search of what was my practice, what was my practice, and that led me into, actually, because of where I was living at the time in California, actually, at 26 years old, I was invited to a sweat lodge, and it was in the sweat lodge that I finally really met my ancestors. I felt them there. They were there with me. And that was the beginning of this road. And then later, as the years have gone by, I am now 53, I found out that my great-grandmother was a healer in Borinquen, So these things are, even if you don't know, from the start, you will, if you're on this path, eventually find out, right? As we hear abuela or great-grandmother or great-great-grandmother that was doing this work before.
You eventually tap into those misunderstood or not understood realms, right?
Exactly.
Or places,
Yes.
How about yourself, Carlitos?
There was, growing up, there was, something you mentioned, Apa, which was that you, when the adults were discussing knowledge or talking about practices, you would pay attention. I was the exact opposite. I was running around, I was getting lost, I was doing all the things. And before we moved to the US, I grew up between Veracruz, which is on the coast, and then Mexico City. And in both places, you have very different traditions. But with my families in both places, we would be doing things that then looking back, we just never called it as, curanderismo or curanderia, but they were practices that then I'm like, no, they were carried generation after generation, whether that was like, before every school year or every important thing that we needed to do a cycle, it was putting lentejas throughout the house or in my backpack or in places that I would be too, so that they would be able to collect that energy and protect me, right? Or talking about the way that we can talk to those that had left us in the family and had gone on to the next plane, and having those conversations. And And then I would then, came to the U.S. and I would talk to kids. I'm like, yeah, you don't talk to your grandmother who's not alive anymore? Because I do it all the time. And I hear her. And it turns out that's not a common practice.
Right.
But it is, but it is. And we just don't think about it. And then, but throughout all of it, and then I think that there was one member of the audience which mentioned it was also through medical reasons who learned more about it. And it was when I was 16 that we started going to a sobadora in Richmond, California. And that's where I learned a lot more. And it was, through, going to her and learning more about what sobando is and why it's so important and what Western medicine misses and what sobando can provide. The first time I went to a sobadera, I could just describe, I felt back and I felt like a little loose avocado peel. It's the only way you could describe it, but from physically, but also inside. And it was just something I was like, this is something that I don't ever want to leave. That it's just something that this makes sense and it is who I am and I want to continue learning. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you, all of you, for sharing, and the audience again as well. And it's a great segue, Ingrid, into talking about your book, The Man Who Could Move Clouds, which is about your grandfather, who was a curandero, and your mother was a healer. And I really want to touch on that for a little bit. I know that I shared with you that I really resonated with your book because, the relationship that you had with your mom where, for example, the moles. You all have the same shoulder moles, but different sides. I have the same 4 moles as my mom, but going down a different way compared to her on her face, right? So all these little things just made me think about made me wonder if the relationship with curanderismo and your mom has changed in any sort of way since you're a very open book about it, you know what I mean? And usually there tends to be this the sense of keeping things low key sometimes, right? Or this shame that comes up for some reason, and our families don't want to be so open about it, and you have been, you've been very open about it. Do you feel like this openness has also, somewhat impacted the relationship that your mom has had with the practice and has maybe made her a little bit more open about it as well?
I think that she has. She's always just been very private about it, and I know that in Colombia, there's, or at least that she experienced that there was social stigma around being a curandera, and it also kind of becomes political. There's sometimes the paramilitary will do, social cleansings where they, go through a village and try to, murder a lot of people that they think are kind of, not being a good person, and that could include queer people, disabled people, and sometimes curanderos. So I kind of grew up with her being very careful around who she told that she was a curandera. And one of the things that happened in life is that the reason why she became a curandera is because she had this accident where she lost her memory. And then when her memory returned, then she just started to be able to hear spirits and see spirits. And I had an accident where I lost my memory, and I didn't return with anything like how she returned with this ability, but I felt like I returned with just wanting to tell the story. Once I remembered everything again, I just had this urge to share it. And in just talking to my mother about keeping memory and what keeping memory means, we just got to this, to this idea that it's important to keep knowledge, but also sharing knowledge is such an important part of building community. So I think as I was writing the book, she was making peace with that, and now that it's out. I think that she's just loved the experience. She's a very strong person, and I had a reader tell me that she didn't have any good role models that were women in her life, but then she read the book and she found a role model in my mother, and that was so beautiful. And I shared it with her, And it just made her so happy. And I think part of her was expecting, because she experienced that social stigma, she was expecting some of that to come out, and that really hasn't been the case. So I think that was very healing for her. So I think it has changed.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Because like when we're young, these subtle ways of these practices are definitely incorporated into our life, right? Like, I don't know, que si agarramos aire, right? Like there's a healing process for that, or el mal de ojo, you know, like there's all these little things that are taught to us at a young age, but still in like a very like keeping it low-key way. You know what I mean? Like, for example, sana sana colita rana, right? That's the first mantra that like I ever knew, and like I will always know, you know? And like it's these little things that we just, you know, grow up with. And so, you know, after touching on the relationship with this practice and your mother, I want to know, like, how has your relationship with the practice changed now that after your experience with that crash and tapping back into it and wanting to tell your story?
Yeah, I think I was sort of like Carlito in the beginning, where I was just not paying attention as much. And yeah, I think through just losing my memory and then remembering all of the stories of the family, and then just remembering, I don't know, seeing my mother in that role, that I just had the opportunity to forge a new relationship to it. And it was one where, you know, when my memory came back, the one thing that didn't come back immediately was that piece of the memory of my mom saying, and be careful who you tell. So that part didn't come back. And what happened then was that I just told everybody, you know? And it was just very beautiful, because then there was no place in my new, you know, becoming a person that I had to be careful around that. And I couldn't even remember, or I couldn't imagine occupying that space, even though I had, but I just could, you know, like in my new being, I can't imagine why, you know. Yeah, so that was, I think, you know, that changed a lot. And then doing a lot of research for the book, and meeting other curanderos, and doing a lot of history, and looking at you know, different tribes, and picking up you know, things that my mother does, you know, and seeing that, like, oh, that's from the Orotones, and you know, just really getting into the history of Santander, which is where we're from. That just, it wasn't a knowledge that I had before. So yeah, so I think that I have like a more robust relationship to it, and like a happier, like joyful relationship to it. Very, you know, I'm proud of it. I think it's beautiful.
You're embracing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely. And I know that dreams are a big part of this book. And Napa, you've done a column, you know, on Nylon, Ask a Witch, and you touched on lucid dreaming. And Endra, you've shared in the Curanderismo toolkit that you've had night terrors, right? That was something that you experienced as a kid, and you shared with the audience. How can, you know, we practice you know, tapping into our dreams and paying attention to them, and the signs that we're getting from our ancestors and whatnot, you know, for those that don't have too much experience tapping into dreams or paying attention to them, right? How can we tap into those realms and really pay attention, or what do we need to look out for, you know, things along those lines?
I think the biggest thing is first the intention, you know? The intention to really understand your dreams and to remember them too. Very important to keep a notebook, and if you can just, you know, as soon as you wake up, write it down. Because I've had the experience where I've had some pretty profound dreams, and then it's gone. So.
I think for me, it's just important to realize that the dream world and this world are very interconnected and very parallel, and that we actually receive a lot of messages, you know, when we're talking to our passed on relatives and our ancestors. That dream world is where we can kind of travel. Our spirits can travel to different worlds, to different realms. We can even travel to, and meet those afterlife spirits and, commune with our ancestors that way. So yeah, really paying attention and acknowledging all of those symbols, all of those, interactions that you have, and really noticing that, we are receiving a lot of messages. Whether we remember them or not, we're always receiving information and messages through our dreams, and that we can really plant, the seeds of our intention in that dream world and manifest, those benefits here in this reality. So it's very important to pay attention to your dreams. And yeah, I think it's something that a lot of indigenous cultures, communities of color really value, is that, our subconscious, our intuition is just such a rich source of information.
Yeah, I also think writing them down, and then writing them down, I think, in the present tense. And not saying like I had a dream, but more like I am at the, like I am at the room. And then, yeah, I think without the trying to explain, then you, maybe forge a better relationship to it. But yeah, dreams are so important, like you were mentioning, connecting to ancestors. There's, like one of the main reasons why I ended up writing the book is because two of my aunts and then my mother had the same dream where my grandfather told them, I want to be disinterred. And he had been underground for 27 years at that point. But because it happened 3 times in the same week, then we just all decided to go back to Colombia and do the disinterment. And we've, found out like people had been leaving prayers in his grave. And so we just, we couldn't have known any of that had we not been in the practice of listening to dreams.
Right. And it sounds like, an important step is also discussing with your family, whether that's chosen or also, like the family you grew up with, right? Because it could, themes or motifs or symbols could come up that we ourselves don't recognize, but that they might, which, I know I've had conversations with my mom, and I'm telling her, like, I keep seeing a valley, and I'm like, why? That's so random. And she's like, well, because of that's exactly where your grandfather grew up. Like, we told you so many times, you didn't pay attention. But I think it's, if that's an option, whether you have, you can speak, you can have those conversations with family, again, your chosen or the ones you grew up with. That's something really, really important. And that's part of the process to understand. And Paloma, you just reminded me something, which is of the Curanderismo Toolkit, which is a book written by Ataba Garcia, and it's an anthology of knowledge, of many types of knowledge, of healing, of Curanderismo. And it includes many conversations with healers, with knowledge keepers, including Yura. And in the book, you mention, and this is something that you've already touched earlier today, which is that as a displaced indigenous person, a mixed blood, it's not easy to reconnect with this ancestral knowledge, with this net legacy, right? Because colonialism, imperialism, that's what it does, right? It makes it hard, it makes it difficult for people now who are living in the legacy to connect con todo ese pasado, con todo ese legado. So I'm curious because, focus of your work is ceremonia, is ceremony. How can ceremony help us reconnect with it? Because you've already mentioned about having those conversations, but I'm curious now, what is the role and significance of ceremony?
Well, like I said, my first sweat lodge, my ancestors met me there. And it's interesting, right? Because that was an Anipi ceremony, right? That was not my ancestors' ceremony. However, my ancestors met me where they could. And your ancestors will meet you where they can, because we are in the diaspora, and sometimes we find different roads, right, to find them. And ceremony is so important to wake up that connection to the ancestors, the sacred smokes, the singing, everything that you experience, it kind of like, drops away all that armor that we have and those blocks to connecting with our ancestors, to remembering our indigeneity, and it helps us to remember, right? It helps us to remember and wakes up our DNA memory, right? Because we know all of this knowledge is actually within each and every one of us, and going to ceremony wakes that memory up.
Right. And how can someone, that perhaps is just learning, is just beginning this journey, start thinking about ceremony, about which, what space is for them?
Exactly. You wanna start connecting with people. I mean, especially here in the Bay Area, we have access to so much and so many practices and so much ceremony. So being in the Bay Area is actually really a blessing, right? But you want to connect with your elders, right? Your elders, talk to friends, and find out where the ceremonies are, and get yourself there. Get yourself there.
Right.
Yeah.
And once you identify where you need to be or where you want to be, the next step is cultivating that practice, right? That cultivation, which is
just like any spiritual practice, right? It requires, your attention. Again, like the attention on the dreams, your attention, your dedication, and consistency. Consistency is very, very important. It's not like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go have this, one ceremony once a year, and I had my spiritual experience, and I go back to my life. No. It's like, okay, go to the ceremony and then come back and see how you can integrate that into your life and those practices into your life, because that's how you're really going to wake up your memories.
Right. And talking about integrating knowledge into our lives, you today will be showing us how to create our own cleansing mists. For everyone here and everyone watching from home, can you tell us a little bit more about what you will be showing us today?
Yeah, so I love making medicine, and I love plantitas, and I make salves and I make sprays. So this spray that we're making, it's actually, similar to what my abuela used, right, on me, right? So this is a cleansing spray, and the plants that we're going to be using are plants often that are used in limpias, right? Yeah, so I'm excited. Yes,
should we head over?
Yeah,
we're right over here, y'all.
Let me just also make a quick comment that there's going to be some samples being passed around that are the herbs that they're going to be using up here, just so y'all can smell them, feel them, really engage with them as you're walking us through the demo. So you should be getting a little baggie soon.
And we will invite one person once we're done to receive a bit of the energy from over here that we will be working on. But first, do you want to walk us through the ingredients that we have over here?
Sure. So we have some dried herbs, and then we also have some fresh herbs. And you can actually, use all fresh herbs or all dry herbs. Right. And today we have a little bit of a mix.
Right.
And then what we're going to be using is pericon, right, which grows a lot here in the Bay Area. This is what it looks like, pericon. So I'm sure you've seen it. It has a very strong scent.
It comes out when it rains. Oh my, yeah.
And some people don't like the scent because it's very strong. I love it. And then we have lavender, right, which is another. All of these are very aromatic, plants. Lavender. And we have rose petals. We're going to use some rosemary. And these beautiful plants here come from my dear friend, another Curanderis who's in the Curanderis toolkit book, Batol Trueheart, gave these plants here today from their garden. Wow. So these are special. And we have some beautiful cempasúchiles here that they grew, and we know that this is used to attract the ancestors.
Right. So everything can be found right here in the Bay Area.
Yes. All of this grows right here in the Bay Area.
Wow.
Exactly.
All right. So we have our dried herbs, our fresh herbs, and what else do we have?
And we have some vodka. So there's different ways to make sprays, right? This is the way that I like to make mine.
Right.
So we have vodka here, and we also have some distilled water.
And as for can vodka, because I know that in some other mists we use rum. Can rum also be used?
You can use any type of alcohol that you like. It's mostly being to preserve the plants, right?
Yeah.
So that it will last a long time. So basically, what we're going to do first is we're going to put our plants in here. So we have a mason jar, and we're going to put our plants in here. First, I'm going to put in some of these dried herbs. That's the pericon. I'm going to put some lavender and some of these rose petals. I'm going to put some of these fresh white rose petals in as well.
Yeah, you won't find the white rose petals in the little samples.
Right.
But you'll find the rose, the rose ones, not the pink ones, not the white ones.
Yeah.
But as Ra prepares the ingredients, take a chance, take some time to smell each of the ingredients you have, right? I mean, Ra, you mentioned, I mean, of course, I mean, how some of them have stronger flavors, right? I mean, the pericon, the yautli has that really strong flavor. Of course, the more delicate flavor, or not flavor, excuse me, aroma, scent of the rose, right? And then, of course, cempasúchil also has its own aroma. And I mean, together, I mean, in its scent, I mean, when you smell it immediately, I mean, I feel it opens up my chest a little bit, especially with the romero.
And I'm just gonna, since we have the cempasúchil here, I'm just gonna put some of that in here too.
Put it in there, yeah.
And the other thing that I'm actually going to add, which you can add, is I'm going to add a small quartz crystal. Quartz crystals, amplify energy, and so I'm gonna put a little quartz crystal in here as well. And so I fill this up about 3/4 of the way, and then I'm going to, this is the vodka. And with the vodka, now this is the folk method, right? There's ways to do this where there's very exact measurements, but I don't like doing it that way. I like doing the folk method. And so I'm gonna fill this up again about 3/4 of the way with the vodka, and then I'm gonna finish it off with the distilled water. So this is taking a little time to pour it out.
And do the herbs and flowers, Ra, do they usually observe the alcohol scent, or how does that work?
Yeah, so that's another reason why I personally like to use vodka, because vodka does not have a very strong scent. And then we're adding the distilled water to it, and these plantitas are very aromatic.
Right.
So you're gonna smell the plantitas most of all. That's been my experience.
Right. And I mean, the idea at the end of the day, to add this alcohol is to preserve, right? So
exactly.
that this can, we can use this today, tomorrow, in a month.
Exactly. That's the main purpose here. And so here we have our jar of medicine. Now what we're going to do with this, though, is we're going to actually let this sit for about 4 weeks minimum. I personally like to have, when I do this, I have it sit for about 6 to 8 weeks, just because it gives it more time for the aromas, to get in there. And then when you're done and you're ready to pour out your medicine, you're going to get a little spray bottle, like this one here. This one already has some that I had made in it. I'm just using it for, and you're going to want to get your funnel, and you're going to want to get a little strainer, and then you can pour that through, and you will have your spray
ready to go. And then
ready to go.
And this and the spray, I mean.
Yes.
Thank you.
And what about our audience? When you smell through the baggies, what scent do you pick up at first? You can just shout them out. Pericon, lavender. The rosemary scent is very strong and pungent.
Right.
Lovely.
And rosemary is really good for clearing the mind. So whenever, and rosemary grows all over the place, right? So if you're having a stressful day, grab a bit of rosemary and just sniff that in and just rub it on your head.
Yeah. And the spray, when could be a good moment to use it? I mean, after all, it's 4 to 6 weeks, when You can finally use it.
Oftentimes if I'm going out into the world, before I leave for the day, I spray myself.
Oh yeah.
You know, and when I come back, if I still feel like there's some residual energies that I've carried, I'll spray myself again.
Yeah. Especially if you're like, I mean, it's gonna be a day where you're like, I'm gonna have to deal with a lot. You need that extra protection. You need that extra blessing.
You're going through a hard time. You're grieving. You know, take care of yourself. With the medicine.
And now I think it's a good time to, invite one member of the audience. Have them, because you mentioned the Romero, to have them feel a little bit of that Romero and the energy that it comes with, that re-energizing feeling. So, let's get a show.
And then they have intentions, right, that they wrote down. That's another thing that I forgot to say, is that is something that you can also do. I put the quartz crystal in here, right? But you can speak your intention into here, right? Because we know that water and liquid carries the vibrations, you know? So you can speak your intentions right into your medicine. And then as it's sitting for the next, 6 or 8 weeks, shake it up, come back to it, and again, keep putting your intention in there.
Exactly. And it goes with that cultivation of practice that you mentioned, right? It's not just a one-time thing, but it really is something that requires constant, conscious effort.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think, but thank you for mentioning the intention. So, if anyone would like to come up and share some of the Romero, and perhaps even share the intention with, you don't have to share the intention with everyone here, but maybe with Ra, or maybe even with the mist, with the, what's already been prepared, please raise your hand and we can call on, and we'll call you.
Have folks taken the time to write an intention? Yes.
Some folks
We're getting some yeses.
Okay, we can give folks a minute.
So then let's go ahead and see who wants to volunteer to come up here and enjoy this experience with Ra and Carlos.
Oh, I think I saw somebody. Yes, all the way at fourth row, I believe.
Perfect.
Yes,
So
come
you
on
can
up.
come up.
Wow.
Through these stairs.
Yeah.
And what is your name? Lisa. Round of applause for Lisa, y'all. Oh, straight from work. Yes. Right over there.
Oh, and hi, nice to meet you, Lisa. And you're also, and you also work in medicine and healing as well.
Yeah, but this is what I've always kind of grown up with. My great-grandma was a curandera, and then my grandma picked up some from her. And so when I was little, she would, and plus they were really poor. They were field workers, so they had to make all their own medicines and stuff. And I was like always into it, where other people were bored. Always doing little things when we were kids, and
Would you like to share your intention with us, or would you like to keep that private?
No, I could share it. To cleanse and to heal.
All right.
That's how I feel.
To cleanse and to heal.
Yes.
Can you please?
Oh, sorry.
Can you smell that?
I love it.
For Lisa, if she talks more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. And thank you, Ra. Thank you so much. Another round of applause.
Thank you,
Round of
Lisa.
applause. And I, again, just want to stress what you mentioned, which is that these practices are something that we cultivate every day, right? Which is just like you speak your intention into it every day or whenever you can, so that then you can reap what you sow, right? You can reap the energy that you yourself. Because, our ancestors can tell us, can guide us the way, but, we got to help ourselves too, right?
Exactly. Exactly. We have to be active. And we have to be consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then we can join everybody else back over here. And again,
Yes,
a round of applause for Ra.
Please. Thank you, Ra. And now we'll be moving on to Napa, who also has a demo today. And Napa is going to be demoing a late summer tecito. But before we get into that, Napa, you're a herbalist. You also mix your work with traditional practices, right? And on your website, Napa, you mentioned that your practice is rooted in self-healing as a method to decolonize our relationships with the earth, our bodies, you know, and really reconnecting with ourselves. What are some ways people can practice that? And why do you think that we tend to get disconnected from ourselves and source?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, you know, might struggle, you know, reconnecting to their identity, reconnecting, you know, even to themselves. And that's a huge part of my herbalism practice. I am trained as like a Western, you know, clinical herbalist. You know, a lot of that is a lot of the European plants. But obviously I grew up with my indigenous practices and practicing Curanderismo. So for me, it's really important to understand, you know, the plants on all levels, both, you know, the medicinal aspects, because we are living in this crazy world where we have, you know, diseases and a lot of health issues and disparities within our communities. So being able to treat that is very important to me and be able to address those health concerns, but also knowing that the plants are always working on a spiritual level as well and on a magical level as well. So I teach a lot of classes that are really rooted in that plant magic and understanding, you know, how these plants are working on all levels, on a medicinal level, on a spiritual level. And for me, I think the best way that we can all, you know, reconnect with our bodies and you know, with this medicine is just spending time in nature. You know, all of these elements, everything that we're surrounded by is reflected in our bodies. And it really just recalibrates us and reconnects us to ourselves when we're, you know, spending times with the elements, spending time with water, spending time, you know, with the air, listening to the wind. So yeah, nature is my kind of biggest healer, and I think it's just a simple way that we can all tap back into ourselves.
What was that first plant, Napa, that you had that like connection to?
So many.
Yeah.
One we're going to talk about with my demonstration. I'm very connected to flowers and to the magic of flowers, and something that my grandfather always said is, you know, the flowers give us so much, you know, they give back too. You know, it might not be a fruit or a vegetable, but the flowers are giving us medicine and magic just with their presence, with their beauty. So the hibiscus is just a very magical medicinal plant, but also just beautiful. And it's something that's always called to me since I was little.
And it tastes good too, Jamaica?
It tastes delicious. Yeah, we're gonna brew up a little bit right now.
All right, so that's a great segue then into the demo. And Napa is gonna share her knowledge on herbs with us and share this mix of tea that we're all gonna get a chance to try at the end of the event. We're gonna have a little table set up for everyone to taste the demo mix. So let's go ahead and get into it, Napa. What are we going to begin with?
Beautiful. So this is my late summer tecito, an herbal medicinal tea that's also filled with lots of, you know, magical and spiritual properties as well, kind of representing the season as we segue from summer into autumn. So here I have beautiful lemon balm. In Spanish, we call her Melissa, which is also what the Latin name is derived from. Lemon balm's a great antiviral. It's really good for calming mood, kind of calming the spirit, really grounding the body, but still kind of uplifting us and keeping us joyful. Really great for stress, really great for digestion, and it's amazing for all ages. So I love Melissa. I have some tila, which is known as linden in English. You'll see it in the Mexican grocery stores as tila. Such a beautiful medicinal herb as well, great for, you know, calming the mood and the nervous system as well as great for the respiratory system, also great for children. Also just a very delicious sweet tea. And I love that you can just find it, you know. Most Mexican grocery stores, you'll find some tila, and just
very
great,
common.
very, very common, and great for just calming the body and mind. We have that beautiful hibiscus, the jamaica. I love connecting, you know, how our traditions are such a cross-cultural mixture and blend. So, you know, hibiscus coming from that African influence in our culture, I think it's very important to acknowledge that. And just the cooling aspect of hibiscus, which I think is something that that we all need, especially in the hot summer. Hibiscus is really great for circulation and for just cooling the body and really connecting to ourselves and connecting to our bodies as well. It's just such a beautiful, rich tea. Next, I have one of the plants that in Western herbalism is actually a Mexican herb, of Mexican origin. I have Damiana here, native to Baja California, native to that part of Mexico, and also great for calming the nervous system. It's also really popular as an aphrodisiac. So I think it's just great for feeling that juicy, luscious energy of life and for connecting, to our bodies. Just such a delicious plant. It's a little bitter, so I'm just gonna put a little bit in there.
I remember when I tried that for the first time.
So good.
Yeah, I was like tripping, y'all.
Right?
Like how euphoric I was feeling. I was like, did I just have tea or what was that?
This blend is very, my goal as an herbalist is always to make things taste good also, because, sometimes people associate herbal medicine with things that are just bitter and disgusting. And, we can always make things delicious and pretty. So that's my medicine. And, Damiana is very common. You'll see it in Mexico, infused in alcohol, infused in mezcal. So it's definitely one of those joyful, uplifting, delicious herbs.
I definitely recommend.
Yeah, we're all gonna sample some at the end. Here I have canela, or cinnamon. So great for circulation, just kind of warming the body, and just great for getting things moving in general, just for abundance, for activation. That spice of life is just so important. And I really like mixing the cinnamon with the hibiscus. It's very reminiscent of, in Caribbean culture, you'll see the sorrel drink that's made with hibiscus and a lot of spices. So the combination of the cooling and the spice, I think, is just such a delicious flavor. So we love cinnamon. And then I have some orange peel, citrus in a lot of kind of magical traditions. We use citrus to kind of like break through stagnant energy. That like acidic kind of citrus flavor just helps us kind of like break through stagnant energy, fresh beginnings, and just adds delicious flavor, a little vitamin C action.
With a show of hands, y'all, with the herbs, and ingredients that got mentioned up here, does anyone have experience with these, or all these new herbs?
A lot of these are
some of us
common
have some
favorites,
nice.
some new ones. Okay, I don't know
how the hot water. Interested? There you go. And do measurements matter?
This was very intuitive, but it's from a long time of working with these herbs. So as you start to connect with the plants, you'll really get to know their flavors, their personalities, how they interact with each other. So everything was done with that in mind of I like doing a lot of my grassy, more leafy things, the flowers, and then, the things that might have a stronger flavor, doing a little bit less. But follow your intuition. I think it's great to kind of sample herbs one by one so that you can develop that relationship with them and then kind of get into the formulating and all of that. So we're just gonna leave this for a couple minutes and let it infuse. And then as we go out into the lobby later, everyone's gonna get to try this tea. And I'll have some for sale as well if anyone wants.
Yes. Our featured guests are gonna have, Ingrid's gonna have their book, Ra and Napa are gonna have a table as well. So you can definitely check them out after this event. Now, Napa, as we make our way back to our seats, for folks that want to start this healing process through herbs, what's some advice that you would give to them, to those that don't have much of a background in it, and are starting to dabble with it?
I think part of kind of understanding the plants, kind of coming to this plant path is really getting to know, like I said, each plant kind of individually and developing a relationship with it. So like you were saying, rosemary grows everywhere in the Bay Area. Just go out and pick a sprig of rosemary, even if it's, in front of your neighbor's house or wherever you see it in the park, and just start noticing what plants are on your path every day, on your walk to work or in your neighborhood walking around. what plants, are growing there? What plants are maybe trying to say hi to you and have a conversation with you or reaching out to you? There's so many out there, and we all obviously have like our ancestral plants that, are really deeply connected to us and our lineages, but even just in your neighborhood, there's so many things. And one common kind of saying that you'll hear a lot of curanderas say is like, the medicine is all around us and it's always within reach, So the medicine that you specifically need, it's probably growing right next door to you or right near you. You're probably already growing it, It's just kind of opening yourself up to that different level of consciousness and understanding where it's like, yes, I can say hi to a flower, and the flower, is appreciating and saying hi back. So kind of tapping into that different level of understanding and of seeing all of the elements and all of nature around us as being in conversation and in co-creation with us.
I love what you mentioned just now, Napa, which is that like you can be walking on your commute, and I have conversations with friends who are also curious about how to start this conversation with plants, with herbalism, and there's this feeling like aquí no, aquí en la ciudad no, like in this city no, and it's this feeling like the city is a place that is absent of this knowledge or of nature, and I think that what you said is just be conscious, because I live in the Mission, I live not too far away from here, and when I go to Mission Street, I can tell you, like 4 different spots where like manzanilla grows naturally, right? And you can pick it, and I guess there is, a bit of a, for some, a bit of a, no están acostumbrados, not used to just like, picking flowers off like the thing, but that's like, that's how you do it, like even if it's like right next to the parking meter, that's a thing. And I think, obviously nature and the knowledge that comes with it is always in resistance, and it breaks through that concrete, literally and metaphorically, and recognizing it and acknowledging like, hey, it's saying hi to me, like, maybe let me take some of that.
Right.
So, para después. I think that's really, really cool, and it's something that I'm trying to work on. And it just knowing that everything, from the spray to the té is available right here in the Bay Area. It's just something you got to start, training that eye, ¿verdad? Ese ojo.
100%, or dreams too, right?
Yes.
That we can
One
tap
thing that
into
I'd like
whenever.
to add is, definitely ask permission, right?
Yeah.
Because these beings that you said that we say hello to, they're alive.
Yeah.
And so that's one of our, our indigenous practices, is to always ask permission from whatever it is that you take. So just wanted to add that.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Definitely thank you for adding that.
And you can also, if you're, really struggling to connect, even asking your ancestors to give you those dreams, to give you that guidance, to bring those mentors and teachers into your life that are meant to be into your life. We can always tap into that.
All right, y'all. Well, any, last words or comments for our audience before we start wrapping anything up? Any takeaways that y'all would like to share? So, we can get to tea samples.
I'm just really grateful to have been invited here, and to share this. And it's just so important that we keep reclaiming our medicine and remembering who we are. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for being here and sharing your knowledge with all of us and being open, right, to opening up in front of all these people and here in this space. I know it's not a very common space, so I definitely do appreciate all of you for coming here and opening up, about your path with us.
Totally. Yeah. And having the 3 of y'all like side by side, it makes it clear that all this knowledge is connected. I mean, each of y'all has expertise, obviously in specific fields, but herbalism is connected to dreams, and dreams is connected to ceremony, and that's connected to altares, and that cycle continues, right? So I think this is, sometimes in Western knowledge, we see of course science is different from history and things like that. But in traditional knowledge, there's that, that acceptance, that confirmation that it is all types of knowledge is inherently connected.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, y'all. So we are gonna start wrapping up because we of course want y'all to go out, enjoy the tea, see what our folks have to offer. We do want to mention that there is an additional SF MoMA winner. SB did a little joke on y'all. So there was a second winner. 2 more winners, actually. And the winners for SF MoMA's Sitting on Chrome show is Karina Ramirez and Antonio, oh, I'm so sorry if I butcher this, Cáceres?
Antonio Cáceres.
Cáceres. Are y'all here? So we can give y'all tickets. Yes?
Karina and Antonio, oh, there you are.
Awesome.
Felicidades.
All right, y'all.
Yes,
and,
thanks.
yes, thank you.
Yes.
And I just want to say, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah,
to get those
yeah, of course. No, I mean, again, please join me in giving thanks to our special guests for their time, their energy, their work, their knowledge, their patience. Ingrid Rojas Contreras, Napa Quetzali Martínez, and Rainy González. Muchas gracias. Ha sido un gran placer. Y ha sido un gran placer estar con ustedes.
Yes, yes. And to our camera and audio and production teams who organized this and made this all happen and are holding it down. Joanne Martinez, Ryan Davis, Esperanza Vaquez, and our whole block team. Thank you all for helping us make this happen. And as y'all make your way out, Napa's going to do a closing for us, but just know that the tables are going to be outside in the lobby as well as the tea demo, so y'all can try that, okay? All right. Now let's enjoy this closing.
Okay. So I'm going to do a little closing blessing for us. This is a beautiful natural rattle made by my father, Guillermo Martinez, who's an amazing instrument maker and musician. So let's just do a little blessing. Creator, we give thanks to each and every person here. We give thanks to your ancestors and higher selves for bringing you into this space, to all the people listening in everywhere you are in the world. We wish blessings and protection on everyone present here. We give thanks to all of these elements, to all of these teachings, to all of these sacred tools that have co-created this space with us. We ask that all of the spirits that have joined us tonight be blessed, return to where you are most needed. As we close this circle, we uplift all of this energy so that we may all take this knowledge, take these teachings, and incorporate them and integrate them into our own lives, into our own beings, and spread that knowledge throughout our communities, into the generations, moving forward and moving back. Blessings, Ometeo. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. We're going to start walking down.
All right.